morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to this webinar session. Today's session, the topic is on data science in the post-COVID world, careers and skills. And this masterclass is going to be conducted in association with the Praxis Business School. So folks, while you're all aware that the COVID pandemic has taken a toll on most businesses, it has also opened up newer avenues in areas such as data science, AI, cybersecurity, cloud computing, automation, and among others, to name a few. And these technologies will definitely help enterprises to drive their digital transformation journey in the post-COVID world. So there is an increasing need for skilled professionals that need to lead the data science and other technologies as part of their business continuity plan. And as newer career opportunities and skills emerge in the post-COVID world, this masterclass by our esteemed speakers will provide detailed insights into the opportunities that lie ahead. So folks, I would like to quickly give an introduction of our session speakers for today's session. We have Mr. Ratnakar Pandey. He has over 17 years of experience in analytics and data science field, and he currently leads the machine learning and analytics initiatives for customer services at Amazon India. He leads a talented and a data-driven team of data scientists and analytics professionals to draw insights and build actionable models from mostly unstructured data from such as text and speech. His focus areas includes natural language processing and understanding, automatic speech recognition, vernacular product development, business intelligence, and analytics. Prior to Amazon, he has worked with Cabbage, where he led the machine learning and deep learning model development activity across customer lifecycle. He also has been part of data science leadership teams in Citigroup, Target, Texas Instruments, and others. A very warm welcome to you, Mr. Ratnakar. Our next speaker for today's session is Mr. Mukesh Saharan. Mr. Mukesh is the AI and ML lead at PepsiCo, and he's the primary lead for advanced analytics team, where he builds data science, machine learning, and AI capabilities for PepsiCo North America market. He's also responsible for building the best-in-class team, processes, platform, governance systems, while leading multiple machine learning and AI initiatives across beverages and food businesses. He also helps create awareness and influence adoption of AI and ML, and he has previously worked with companies such as Bridge I2I, EG Analytics, and he has a BTech from National Institute of Technology, Tiruchirappalli, and MBA from Schulich School of Business, New York University. Welcome, Mr. Saharan.
My pleasure.
And we have Professor Charanpreet Singh. Professor Charanpreet Singh is the founder and director of Praxis Business School Foundation. He's been the driving force behind the highly successful data science program offered by Praxis Business School and is one of the pioneers in this field. In fact, he has started Praxis full-time program as early as 2011. Professor Singh has over 30 years of experience in organizations such as British Oxygen, Tata Steel, PwC, HP, and Praxis. He has a professional and academic interest in the area of education, learning, data science, and communication, and has been a mentor to several career aspirants in this domain. He is a Achieving Scholar of the British government and has done his BTech in Mechanical Engineering from IIT Kanpur and his MBA from the University of Iowa at the USA. So gentlemen, a very warm welcome to this webinar session. It's really great to have you all, and we look forward to an engaging session with our audience. And I would say over to you, Professor Charanpreet Singh.
Yeah, thanks Pradeep, and always happy to be part of AIM events, and always happy to talk to audiences about a subject that is very close to my heart, and especially happy today to have two stalwarts from the industry, Mr. Ratnakar Pandey, whom I will address from now on as RP, as I always do, and Mr. Mukesh Saharan. So welcome to this session, and quick introduction from my side about RP and Mukesh. RP has been teaching has taught at Praxis for a couple of years, or even I think a little more than that, and has been recruiting students for Cabbage. And Mukesh has had conversations. He's addressed our students and he's also recruited from Praxis. And so great to have you both for this event. So what we are going to do here is that, the objective of this event is, and I think that is why all three of us have gathered here today, is to excite you about this career in data science, about this entire field, and to, help you decide whether you want to join this workforce, this army that our country needs in this area. And to fulfill this objective, what we will do is three of us will have a conversation, maybe for the next 45 minutes, in which we will cover things like, COVID has changed the world. So what has it done to the domain of data science? How does the domain look now in the COVID and hopefully very quickly post-COVID period, right? Secondly, what are the career opportunities? And although I think people are aware of career opportunities in data science, my appeal to Mukesh and RP is that I don't think everybody has an idea of uh, the depth and breadth of careers available, right? So I think if you guys can, throw some light on that, what kind of things you can do if you are trained in this domain. And the third thing is, what are the skills you require? What kind of backgrounds do people like, RP and Mukesh look for when they hire? And finally, how do you get there? What do you have to do starting today to become like these two gentlemen we have today, maybe in the next 10 years or so, right? So this is in a nutshell what we will do, and post that we will try and answer as many questions as we can. So you go ahead and keep posting your questions. We will surely try to address them. So starting straight away, and I will between Mukesh and RP, I will toggle, so you can decide who wants to answer first. The first thing I want to really talk about is that uh, we are seeing that in every aspect of life. This pandemic has really shaken us up, and people are now apprehensive about almost everything, right? Including investing in careers, including thinking about changing streams and things like that. So, given that context, where do you see this domain of data science? This combination of technology and data, which is what it is. Where do you see that headed? Maybe we start first with Mukesh and then with RP on this, and then we will. Yeah, Mukesh, would you want to address that? Yeah, we can't hear you, Mukesh. I think you're
Is it
probably.
better now? Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's absolutely fine.
Perfect.
Yes, yes.
So first of all, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for inviting us. I think it's Saturday morning, and there cannot be a better utilization of time than sharing our learnings with other folks. Right? Now, coming to the question, before I try to answer that question, I want to reflect on my journey a little bit. How I went through, because this is not the first time the world is going through the change, right? So similar situation that we are facing today, we were facing after 2008. And bang on in 2010, when Lehman Brothers brother had already gone, I used to be working with a telecommunication firm back in Bangalore, and telecommunication was one of the most impacted industry at that point of time. And question was, will it remain like that or will it improve, right? And therefore, should I go for higher studies or not, was almost coming to in my mind almost every night. What should I do? Right? I think, in my opinion, best decision of my life was taken in 2010 when I thought, okay, I really don't know what will happen 2 years from today, but let's invest in studies. So I went for MBA, went to Canada, did my MBA. At hindsight, at that point of time, to be honest with you, I will not claim that I had complete clarity where I would be 10 years from today. But I would say one thing, that the fact that I took that decision versus a lot of other people who were in my organization at that point of time, I think I made the better decision. Okay? That's one. So my suggestion would be, when the industry is really not going well, and if you happen to be in the industry or business which are probably more impacted, it makes even more sense. Right? That's one. Second, I think in today's world, CP, my learning is 2 years is a long time, right? Which basically tells me that if you start your journey of upgrading yourself today, by the time you will get out of the college, like any of the 2 years or 1 year program, I think the world would have changed a lot. I would be a lot more optimistic for right reasons, right? Third, I would say in today's world, it is very, very important for yourself to develop skills and learn tools and technologies that are transferable from one business to another business or one category to another category, right? You don't want to be stuck in one industry just because this industry is getting impacted by COVID or financial crisis or anything, right? And these are the learnings. Right? So coming back to your question, data science, etc. I think data science is one particular industry today which every business wants to use. You talk about pharma, you talk about consumer packaged goods, you talk about insurance, talk about e-commerce. Amazon, right, is hiring at a big scale, right? You talk about even banking, right? Only industry maybe I will probably say maybe retail is not hiring today because they are impacted, correct? But data science is one particular industry everybody is hiring today, and my personal belief is this is the skill. If you invest in, you will become lot in a horizontal that we call in companies, right? You can actually support sales, marketing, finance, and multiple industries. And in the future, if there are God forbid, if similar kind of situation arise, you will be able to not only find a job, but will be able to differentiate many other people who hesitated to take this decision today. So I'll take a pause here. Let RP add to it.
Yeah, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Mukesh. Yeah, thank you, Mukesh, for that view. So I think, I could relate to a lot of the points that you mentioned. So I'll come to the point that Charanpreet began with, which is, what is the impact because of the COVID, particularly on the data science industry? Based on the vantage point that I have, based on the companies that I'm working with right now or have worked with in the past and have talked to my colleagues, ex-colleagues, there is zero impact, in my opinion, right? In fact, in a lot of places, the hiring has gone higher for the data scientists, right? And the main reason for that is because this is not a job which requires a physical presence in the office, right? So as long as you have a system, you have the access to the cloud, you have the problem statements given by the company or the objectives that you're trying to solve for, there's nothing that stops you from going and accomplishing that, right? So there is absolutely very, very little impact. So in fact, just to give you a solid example, the company that CP mentioned earlier on, Cabbage, right? So the Cabbage was acquired by American Express, and they decided to fold up the India office, right? And there were like 70 odd people working in the data science industry or that vertical in the company. Within month and a half, 60% of those were placed bang in the middle of the pandemic. I'm talking about the like May and June timeframe, right? So it's that hot a commodity. People were in fact calling me that I heard such and such thing about Cabbage. Would you have some recommendations on the people that I can go and recruit and so on and so forth? And they were recruiting in masses, right? So they're not necessarily saying one or two. They're saying I need to set up the entire vertical and I need to get the people placed over there, right? So I would not worry about COVID at all, given the grand scheme of things that we are in. So you have to sort of like, in terms of drawing a parallel, I will say probably the data science industry is at the same stage where IT was in the late 1990s, beginning of 2000. So we have at least 20, 30 years ahead of us in terms of seeing any amount of saturation, any amount of plateau coming in. The trajectory is upward and north.
Right, and I can add to this because some of the people who were at Cabbage at that time were Praxis students, ex-Praxis students, and we reached out to them, and like we do, we said that these guys, the companies folded up, and we need to do something for them, and they found jobs on their own. They said, "Sir, thanks for reaching out, but we are good." So
Yeah,
I remember when that happened, and yeah. So yeah, so I think
if I can add to RP's point, I think great point that he mentioned. But I think what we have noticed even post-COVID is a lot more people are spending time online. Right? That's one. And all of us as consumers are customers. Second, all the companies are a little bit forced to sell brand, create awareness online. Which what is it doing? It's actually creating more data. Right? It's creating footprint. Right? What is happening because of this? Another trend we are seeing, there's a lot more focus on the digital transformation by the executive leadership of all these organizations or industries that we talk about. Now, I think in the long run, in the short run, RP said, I think impact is almost 0%. But I think in the longer run, I actually, if you ask me, I see it, sorry to say that, but at least for the data science, it could be positive in a sense because there's if there is more data that getting created, if there is more digital transformation initiatives getting created, if there are more focus on AI and ML initiatives in companies like PepsiCo, Amazon, etc., I think they cannot do it by using one person. They will have to come to campuses and hire more people. I think in the longer run, it could even be positive.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, and I think we've seen that. I mean, we are graduating a batch, and we were also very apprehensive. But our experience has been that companies have come and recruited. So yeah, so that was one thing. I think thanks for your your explanation of that, because I think that was something that must be there in people's mind, and I can understand that, because there's so much uncertainty that it does affect people. The second thing was, again, some idea, and I'll start with RP this time, on kind of careers. And I think when we talk about background and skills, we will again connect back to this. What kind of work do data scientists do, and hence what kind of careers can they look at, at this point in time, and let's say moving forward from now?
Sorry,
Yeah,
CPI was a little bit disconnected. So is it a question for me first?
Yeah, that's right. It is a question for you. Yes.
Okay. So if I got the gist of the question, it talks about what sort of work the data scientists to do, what are the different flavors, and
Yes.
how can one add value in the corporate world, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So to answer that question, this is one field, and Mukesh talked about that earlier as well when he answered the first question. So this is more like a horizontal, right? So a lot of companies place the data science vertical uh, as a part of strategy, right? So I mean, the company's overall strategy direction, what they want to do, what product they want to launch, how they want to serve the customers, how do they enhance the user experience, how do they optimize the cost. Everything basically will come down to the strategic execution of the company, and the analytics or the data science professionals play a critical role in that direction, right? Now the data science world is as wide and as deep as an ocean, right? So it will be very, very difficult to give one definition and say this is what you do. So you could be doing anything which basically has data as the input, right? And the data can be coming in from your own company, it could be coming in from the third party sources, it could be coming in from the government sources, publicly available information, macroeconomic condition, whatever, right? I mean, wherever you are generating the data is coming in. And we are the layer, or we are the engine in between. And when I say we, it includes machine learning scientists, research scientists, applied scientists, BAs, analytics professional, data scientists, whatever you want to call that. I mean, so there are many, many names people call it by, but basically this layer is what we call as the analytical engine. So what this analytical engine does is they will have the know-how of interacting with that data, pulling that information. Basically that means you are able to access wherever the data is, whether it's in the in-house servers or it's on the cloud or wherever it might be. You have to go there and reach that data. Once you have the data, you just do not create an Excel and send it on, because that will not be anything analytical, right? So what you have to do is to really work backwards from the business problem that you're trying to solve, right? If your business problem was how can I really gain 10% extra market share, the how part is what you're going to come back and communicate to your stakeholders, right? So you are coming out with the insights, with the recommendations, with the conclusions about something in terms of what action I can take, right? And typically speaking, we break down the word of analytics into four broad categories. One is the descriptive analytics, which is basically talking about what has happened. The other one is the diagnostic analysis, not only what has happened, but why it has happened. And the third one is predictive analytics, knowing that what has happened, why it has happened, what may happen in the future. And the last part is the prescriptive analytics, which talks about what is it that we should do, what is it that our stakeholders should do, given that insight based on the data, right? The word is quite wide. I mean, in Amazon, for example, I named few fields. So the overall analytical organization can be business analyst, they can be business intelligence engineer, they can be machine learning engineer, they can be data scientists, they can be applied scientists, they can be research scientists, right? And in other companies, they may also have other designation. So designations do not matter so much, but ultimately you'll be working with the data, doing the visualization, drawing the insights. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thanks, RP. Mukesh, you want to add to that?
No, absolutely. No, I think, I was actually in one of the campuses, of course, online a few days back, and somebody asked me, what is data science first, right? Because these are the MBAs, etc. So let me just try to explain it the way I would try to explain it to my 4-year-old daughter, right? Before we jump into what they do, etc. So let's say I'm a vegetable vendor, right? I'm actually selling. Remember in the old days, vendor used to come and say, take aloo, take vegetables, etc. This is the kg, etc. Let's say you are a vegetable vendor. Your expertise is selling vegetable. Your expertise is being able to guide the ladies of the house that this particular potato is going to be good. This particular onion is going to be. That's what your expertise is. So you are a product expert, right? And let's say you are every day going into one particular geography and selling there. Now this is a good example of, let's say, PepsiCo is a product manufacturer. Their capability lies in being able to create great product and being able to tell that this is a great product. Now, let's say this particular vendor goes to that and that particular geography, and he reaches out to one of you guys in the future. He says, you know what, I've been selling in this geography, fairly satisfied with what we are doing, but I'm not able to grow. Right? I don't know what to do. And you being a consultant in the future, what you do is you actually walk with that vendor in that geography. What you notice is there are small houses in that particular geography. There are large families because you see the kids playing on the middle of the road. Roads are pretty not so good. Right? Surroundings are not very clean. Right? Quality of the house is also under. So these are basically few things that you notice, and you are not telling about the product of the vendor. You're talking about the characteristics of the consumer. Right? Now, what you do is basically that's the data you collected. Right? If you are a consultant, a data scientist of the future, and designations don't matter, like RP said, but your capability of being able to understand, hey, what data should I capture to be able to help this vegetable vendor? So let's say you captured the data. And now what you do is you go across the city within the Bangalore, let's say I am in Bangalore. Now you found out another geography where you notice there are bigger houses, right? There are wider roads in that geography. Right? You saw that, kids are not playing on the road. They have enough good park in the surrounding where all the kids are. Bigger cars are parked in that area. So what this consultant is going to try to reach is, hey, potentially the ability of being able to buy is going to be much higher for the people living in this geography. That's one. Second, because their ability to buy is more, they are not going to focus so much on negotiation. They're going to focus on the quality. Right? Second. Third, I'm sure in the past you would have seen your moms, your sisters. I have seen my mom doing that. When we buy something, she will always ask for, give me something free. Right? Green chili, something you free. Right? The people who have big cars, etc., they always have a little bit of ego. They will not ask. They will say, just give me what rate it is. Now, as a consultant, you should be able to analyze the data in the first situation and in the second situation and go back and come to me and say, you know what, Mukesh, I think you are doing great. I think you have developed a great relationship with these guys. But if you deliver same amount of customer support and sell same quality of the product in the newer geography, I think you will be able to do much better. Right? And I'm not saying that your sales will double, etc., but I'm sure it can add at least 4 to 5% of the sales. Now, think about it. If you are able to do the same thing for a company like Walmart, right? Walmart has $500 billion of sales, by the way, around that, kind of 10-15%. 500 billion. Go back and do the calculation how big it is. And if you as a data consultant and data scientist, data engineer, whatever it is, even if you are able to add 1% value, it's huge. It's probably as big as hiring the complete TCS employee that you can. That's the kind of impact you can create. Right? To me, data science really is part of our life on a daily basis, even starting from the vegetable vendor. Right? That's one. Now, why do we need data science teams in the bigger organization? Is data becomes large there. It's really large. You cannot really easily analyze it. Second, it's not easy for all of us to just travel to across the world and find out which location Walmart should put there. Right? And therefore, as RP said we need to analyze the data available which is provided by the governments or NGOs, etc., to be analyzed that which particular geographies are better. We also need to analyze our internal data because we want to make sure that we are able to communicate that what we sell better in which locations. So that's really the starting point. But I think data science in the future is going to become hotter and hotter. And I think RP said it. My belief is we are where we are just touching the iceberg right now. Right? I think companies are going to realize lot and lot value, and they are going to be able to create a lot more so-called as competitive advantage by using the data. And they are going to realize and they are going to start investing more. Right? So to me, in nutshell, I'm not going to get into technical, data engineering, data science. I think they add value in growth. That's one. Second, they add value in mitigating the risk. Third, they add value in increasing and helping us increase our profit margin. And that's what really business needs.
Great. So yeah, so I think what we have seen is over the years, see, we started in 2011. The breadth of companies that come and recruit or they show interest in data science, trained professionals is continued to increase. So the ones who came in 2011 are still coming, but we get a lot of new and some of them are in new areas. So and I think healthcare is going to become really big now.
Yeah.
After COVID, pharma, healthcare, I think these guys are going to become big. So yeah, so I think that every industry is generating data now, and with work from home, I think more and more. I mean, that's going to start another whole line of research as to productivity and privacy and security and all kinds of data are going to be generated. So yeah, so I think this is a good discussion on the breadth and depth of where a data science can work and what kind of work he or she does. The next thing which is on everybody's mind is that I think I'll divide it into two parts. One is a lot of people ask us that this is my background, this is what I did in school and college, okay, and then this is where I worked or did not work, depending on whether I'm just out of college or I have worked in the industry. Can I, and everybody today pretty much knows, every aware person knows that data science, if you have those skills, there are a lot of jobs. So can I become a data scientist at this stage in my life, given what I have done before and what I've studied before? So that is one part. And the second part is when you hire students, what kind of skills do you look for? Innate skills. The training is something that sits on top of that, right? So Mukesh, you want to start that, and then I'll come to RP. Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
think, see, one skill that we definitely don't compromise on, right? And by the way, before we jump into RP and Kosik from this, some of you know, we hired 5 people from Praxis just a couple of weeks back, right? And
Right.
few things that we were really focusing on. First is, I think their ability to adapt to change, right? Because what we work on, the tools that we use today, we might not be using 3 years from today, right? There might be different tools, but we look for, in some scheme of things, will they be able to adapt to the change? Because this industry is going through a lot of changes. That's one. Second, I think we look for people who have been, to be honest with you, exposed to certain tools of today, right? Tools like Python, tools like SQL, tools like Tableau, or some kind of cloud infrastructure like AWS or Azure. We just look for this kind of. And I think that is where being able to take certain courses helps, right? While your your ability to adapt is something that you define, but I think being able to expose to an environment and take that action to learn some of these tools, and you don't need to learn all of them. I can get into that who needs what, right? But even if you know one or two tools and you can claim that you are really good at it, right? Is something that we look for, because when I hire somebody, I also need to be able to convince my business that this person, once we hire, he will start running the ground from the day one. Right? On top of knowing the tools, we also look for people who appreciate the mathematics, right? I think that's one area it's very important for the data scientists per se to be able to appreciate. I'm not saying you need to be the best mathematician in the world, no, but you should be somebody who enjoys solving mathematics problems. And I'm talking about very, very simple problems, correct? Somebody who who doesn't run away from it. Right? That is another thing we look for. And another thing that we look for is storyteller, right? People who likes to talk in general. people who do not hesitate in sharing. Because as I spoke in the beginning, that vegetable vendor, being a consultant, you need to be proactively be able to say, hey, no, I think you need to go here, there. If you are quieter, just looking at the data, it's not going to add value. So we look for some of these things. I will stop here. Maybe RP can add on top of that. But I think these are the things, breadth of things that we look for.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I will break it down in two parts, folks, so that you can easily relate to it, right? So the first part is the hard skills, and the second is the soft skill, right? So within the hard skills, you have, your math knowledge, your statistics knowledge, your coding competency, and so on and so forth, right? So which is where you would actually sign up for a course, go through the training, and then get those necessary hard skills, right? So when we are hiring, or when any company is hiring, unless you are a fresher coming in from the BTech, the expectation is that you have a sufficient level of hard skills, right? So at least at a bare minimum, the expectation is that you can pull the data, you can summarize the data, right? So either knowing SQL or Python is the necessity, right? So that's one thing, right? So that's why, people sign up for different courses or go through different programs and all of that. That basically handles the hard skill. The soft skill is equally important because, as Mukesh was talking about, right? You need to be a storyteller, and you need to be good at the communication. So the soft skills, I'll, probably say the most important, in my opinion, will be the problem solving skills, right? So how do you really begin with a problem which is very, very vaguely defined? How do you demonstrate the structured thought process and break it down, that problem into the bite-sized pieces, and then you start to address that problem, right? So that's the problem-solving, analytical, structured thought process, and something on the same lines that you can think about. The other aspect is how good you are in terms of being part of a team. So this is not solo activity. You have to work with a variety of different stakeholders, right? Because it's a horizontal, so you'll be working with the operations, you'll be working with the customer service, the tech, the finance, and so on and so forth. So you need to be in a mode where you're comfortable, talking to a very, very wide stakeholder, and you can understand what they're saying, and you can make them understand what you're saying. So that's where your listening skills become super important, right? So you just do not go in the meeting and start putting the models in front of them. This is a model, that is a model, right? Because nobody cares about your model. Ultimately, what people care about is the value that you are able to show it to them, right? So you need to be able to take a very, very tough technical concept and break it down to the plain English, and break it down to English sentences which everybody can relate to, and they can see a value in the work that you're doing, right? And besides that, communication skills, something like you need to be taking the full accountability and ownership of whatever is given to you, are more like a hygiene factor. So that is a must-have.
Right, great. So an added question to that, and either of you can take it first. That my first thing that, background and experience kind, and I'm sure we'll get some questions, we'll answer them as they come, but at a high level, I mean, some people feel that I need to be a computer science guy to be able to get into data science, or I have to be, technically very strong, or, so, and of course, all these help. But is there at all a boundary around this, or is it that if you are a natural problem solver, you, as Mukesh said, you may not be the greatest mathematician this earth has seen, but if you are happy with numbers, I remember in 2011 when we started our first program full time, our ad line was, if you love numbers, we have a career for you.
Yeah.
We ran that for about 2 years, and then of course it had to evolve because it went beyond just numbers. But I think that still remains true. So you may not have actually worked with numbers for the last 5 years, but you still love numbers, right? Do you do Sudoku or not, right? Do you find that interesting? Okay, so and technology. If you are not scared of technology, again, you may not have been programming for the last 10 years, but if you are, I think, attitudinally a little techie, you like technology, you're curious, and you like to learn new things. I think those kind of things may help. So what do you guys have to say? I mean, either of you can start, take it up.
So I think you're right, and maybe let me take this question, RP. So CP, I think in some scheme of things, to be honest with you have answered this question. You yourself have answered it because you have absolutely said two words that I was actually thinking of saying. One is, I think you need to be a person who is willing to continuously learn, right? That's one thing that will make you successful in this career. Second, you need to be curious. You need to be proactive. Learning should not be enforced on you. You need to be thinking about it. Hey, is there a new tools, new method, problem that curiosity should be there. Even when you are involved in a project, you should be somebody who is asking questions rather than just doing it in a way. Because the world is changing so fast. The way we were doing things 4 years back and the way we are doing today might be very, very different. Right? And I love the tagline you said. If you love numbers, we have a career for you. I think it was valid in 2011. It is absolutely valid. I'm sure you guys might have evolved, but it is valid today. And CP, I think it will be valid for at least for next 20-25 years. Right? Is my feeling. Now, coming to your question, do you need to be a Komsky background or technical background? At least some of the industries that I have worked or supported, like pharma, consumer packaged goods, insurance, to some extent retail, etc. We do not expect a person to be a computer science background or even a very technical background, right? I think and in some scheme of things, if you're not, only suggestion we would have is you compensate for it a little bit by taking some kind of a learning program for you, which is a little bit more organized, 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. I think, for example, some of us tend to take certain courses online, Coursera, Udemy, etc. Great courses, no doubt about it. But I think they are ad hoc things. You can take them in piecemeal, and if there are certain gap, you fill it. But they cannot completely take away the fact that if you want to move, for example, from mechanical background to a data scientist, you need to invest in yourself because you need to change your thinking, right? You need to learn certain tools, right? And you need to start behaving like certain consultant in data science, right? And that change might require you to invest yourself in maybe 9 months to 1 year minimum, right? And that is where I think some of these programs that in India offers these days, I think we usually go to those kind of campuses because we believe those people have gone through that change. Otherwise, we as a company have to invest in that to organize those trainings, handhold them in the beginning for 6 to 9 months. I think when we hire from campuses, and I'm not talking about one campus, there's a lot of good campuses in India. When we hire from campuses, we find that hand-holding period is very, very little, right? So if you are somebody with a computer science background, absolutely it helps. I'm not going to say it doesn't. It does help you. But I think I'm just saying by taking certain courses, you can compensate for it. And if you are naturally curious and somebody believes in continuous learning, you will do well in this career.
Great. RP, would you add to that?
So I think coming to the question of is background necessary and mandatory condition, the answer there is no. Anybody with any background can be a successful data scientist, right? Will you become a data scientist overnight? The answer is no. Again, you have to do some efforts, right? You have to put some time and effort, and you need to show the real hunger for it. Because what I've seen is a lot of people fall for the hype in the market, but they do not necessarily have the passion. So you must really enjoy this in order to be successful. Have I seen people from the diverse background? Absolutely. I've seen people coming in from the arts background and heading the entire analytics center. They have never done any number crunching. They have never done any coding in their life, but they learned it, right? So in fact, the first generation of the data scientist in India was pretty much like people who came in from the arts background. Economics and arts, right? Very few engineers were there. Yeah, so I mean, they all came in from that point of view, right? But now it's evolving. Is it very hard for anybody to learn? The answer is not, right? So Python and these coding languages are being taught to the 5-year-old kids now. So anybody who has average intelligence can pick it up, right? So anybody and everybody can be successful, but it is not a guaranteed thing, and it will not happen overnight. You need to be at it. You need to be having a real passion to follow it, and then you will be able to get to that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can say from our when we started in 2011, you're absolutely right, RP. We used to get a lot of eco-stat math combo people because at that time it was more business analytics and less data science. So it hadn't become that technical or that technology driven. I mean, let me say it's always technical, but I mean, and then that whole ecosystem has changed. Right. So there is more, you need more programming skills than you needed at that stage, and more understanding of infrastructure, technology infrastructure, and DevOps. So a lot of things have got added. So at this point in time, even now, I mean, we have about 70% engineers in the batch, and the other 30% are from diverse backgrounds. EcoStat math is a good contributor there. But we also picked up, smart guys, smart in the sense, I mean, everybody's smart in their fields, but I said that, I mean, maybe smart in a number sort of way from other places as well. BScs do really well because if they've done their, science, because again, they start thinking in a structured and analytical way, and they're trained in doing that. So they pick up stuff and they go into depth sometimes more than, I mean, I'm an engineer. I know that. I always thought that the guys who were doing pure science were more depth oriented, and engineers want to just solve the problem, right? So yeah, so I think that there is a good space now, and the numbers that the industry requires, I don't think even the industry can afford to be very narrow in who they want and all of that. I mean, as long as they think that the guy can do the job, they are fine. So, which brings me, I think Mukesh has already answered part of that question. That how do I get there? I mean, yeah, yes, Mukesh.
CP, only thing I wanted to add is I think maybe it could be
Yeah,
specific to Pepsi. I don't know about other organization. In fact, in our organization, we encourage our leaders to hire people from different backgrounds in each team.
right.
Right?
Yes,
For example, if you actually give me 10 people, all of them are data engineers, we proactively as an hiring manager think, is there a person who comes with a different background? I'll tell you why. It's not about being able to solve problem. They bring different perspectives. Let's say if you
yeah,
come from a
absolutely.
medical background, right?
Yes,
Medical background, when tomorrow you will be part of my team, your thinking process is going to be very different. And therefore, by having you in my team, even if I'm compromising on the numbers a little bit, I'm adding in a different perspective because when we'll be looking from quality of the food, etc., there are different dimensions you will bring. Your ability to that feature engineering will be much better.
yes,
So we
yes.
strongly encourage people to diversify the team, and diversification is not limited to men versus women, but also from the people with different backgrounds.
Okay, right. Yeah, so I think Mukesh already spoke about that. Maybe RP can add, so there was one more thing. I think the number of years of experience versus absolute fresher. So again, I can say from our experience, we have people who are straight out of college, and they do very well because they are still in their study mode. In fact, the people with experience, we have to bring them back into college mode because they lose the ability to sit in 1.5 hour lecture sessions, right? Yeah, and we have had people with up to 10, 12, 15 years of experience as well. So I think this particular domain is quite forgiving in terms of where you come from and how much experience you've had, as long as you're willing to relearn. Yeah, would you agree with that, RP?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. See, I mean, I think there's a reason behind that. It's not like that the data science companies are doing any favor to any candidates, right?
Right.
The fact remains that if you have worked, even if in very non inclined field. I mean, let's say you have worked in a corporate setting and you worked in the media. You have still worked in a team setting. You have still understood the concept of prioritization. You have still understood how to manage the stakeholders, right? How to communicate your findings and all of that, right? So once you have mastered those hard skills, ultimately the soft skills take over, and that is even more important for the experienced professional, right? So, I mean, for example, I don't do coding on a daily basis in my job, right?
Right.
I have a
Good.
team of people who do it, right? But I must understand what exactly they are working on and all of that. So I mean, the skills that you have, the prior experience that you have, will definitely be value added. For some people, it may be more value added. For others, may not be that much. But definitely, any work experience, any background is welcome as long as you meet the basic threshold of doing the activities on a day-to-day basis.
Absolutely. So Mukesh, how does one get there? So people are, I think a lot of people here, and by the way, you talked about women and gender diversity. So we get a lot of requests by our recruiters that, do you have more women in your batch? So I think women for tech is becoming very important. I think organizations are looking for it. And if there are any women in the audience, let me tell you, there are a lot of companies who want to make their teams more diverse. So it's a huge opportunity for all of you, right? So yeah, coming back to you, Mukesh. I mean, how do we start the journey? I want to look at data science seriously. This is my background and stuff. What do I do next?
I think my suggestion there would be, one, maybe reach out to few people in the data science, seek some input from them, but don't try to copy their journey, right? Their journey is their journey. I would say seek their input in guidance on which courses you could take. If you are coming from a different background than data science or even anything related to data science, my suggestion would be try to filter out top 2 to 3 colleges in India or 4 colleges in India who offer data science courses a little bit more in an organized manner rather than ad hoc one course on Python, etc., or one month or 2 months of program. See, they are good. Those 1 or 2 months programs are good for working professionals like us. Right? For example, I actually very recently did artificial intelligence and its implications from MIT just 2 weeks back. Concluded 2.5 months program. It's good for me because I'm just adding on top of what I know. But people who are coming from different backgrounds, they should look for a little longer term, and probably if it's class based, it even helps. 2 reasons: one, you get to interact with your professors and teachers. Second, you have a batch which is thinking in the same direction and going through that change, so you get that ecosystem. And third, post completing that course, you also need help in placement, etc. Right? While we talk about there is so much of a demand, many a time you as a student don't know whom to reach out for getting placed, and we as a hiring manager don't know where you are. And that's where I think these organized campuses or training programs help, because they will train you, they will help you market, they will even help you develop your CVs, etc. They will also tell you which kind of, for example, this particular uh, webinar that we're doing, I'm sure this is a part of investment, your time investment, at least, from Praxis, creating that awareness, right? So if you become that part of the program, every day you are listening to the folks who are either going through the same journey or who want to help you succeed, right?
Right.
So my suggestion would be for the folks to pick up a program probably within India, because there are enough opportunities in India right now, given the visa concerns, etc. in US. And by the way, I was in US in 2016, returned back to India. I would say India offers you amazing opportunities, specifically in data science and digital transformation. Do a 1 to 2 years of program. Other thing I would say is a program that also offer internship, because internship is also an opportunity to get hired, right? Uh, so I would say where to start, look for program, right? Jump into it, take a little bit of a risk, develop that ecosystem around you, get connected with few people who are already there in that industry, right? Uh, and I'm sure you will come out with flying colors. For example, let me ask you one question, sir. CP.
Yeah.
We hired 5 people from Praxis very recently. I don't know what is the total number of batch.
Right.
And I know this batch is going to get over by May 2021. What's the current status of people of placement, etc.? Maybe you can share that with people.
Yeah, so this batch was supposed to have graduated by November, but because of the pandemic and the batch had already joined and we suddenly had to transition to online. So that got delayed, so it will graduate by the end of the year now, right? And more than I think about half the batch is already placed, and we have more uh, what we call as events lined up. I mean that means processes. That's the I don't do it, so I forget the right nomenclature. It's called processes. So we have processes lined up this week, next week, you know. So yeah, so and this is in a very tough situation, right? I mean, when we were very apprehensive, and we added new companies like yourselves and a couple of others. So yeah, I think that one thing which is also in favor of what you're saying is a structured program, because the people who designed the program obviously know what to do, is the strength of the alumni,
Oh yeah.
Because we reached out to them also. We said that your juniors are here, and this is a time to reach out to help. So whether it's a mock interview or whether it is asking their company, because they also switch jobs, and they said that they bring their company back to us saying that I graduated from here, why don't you look for. So it becomes like a very, and I think it's the same for other institutions also. A powerful alumni network. I mean, if today Harvard and MIT are what they are because of largely because people want to be part of the Harvard alumni network. And that's a huge thing. So I think so. So I think that's true. And RP, you want to add to this?
Yeah, definitely. I think, going back to the question of, how you get started
Yes.
in the journey is,
Yeah.
you have to attend webinars like this. You have to talk to your friends and families who are already working as a data scientist, understand
So
whether
we
that is
lost
something
you.
you like.
Yeah.
And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I'll say probably start with the exploration phase first. You don't have to necessarily jump in. Start with the exploration phase. Try to get more education. And whenever you have a decision to make, my personal philosophy is that you should note down the reasons why you should do it, and you should also note down the reasons why it may not work out for you, right? That will make you, that will basically enforce that you make a correct decision. If you decide that this is something that excites you and you are looking forward to it, I'll say before you jump in, try to dip your feet, right, and try to go through some of these, the free courses and all of that, and see whether that really catches your attention. But if you are really passionate and you know that you have the persistence to be successful, I will definitely encourage you to sign up for a program and then go through it. You may also make a case that if all the videos are available free of cost on the web, everything is available on the YouTube, then why do I need to go through the program? And I think that's what Charanpreet and others have also talked about, right? So we don't have to necessarily rediscuss those points. But what is really important is that you have a formal channel to get assimilated in the industry, right? Once you complete the course, there are a lot of passionate people who will not necessarily need that help. But I think if you have really made up your mind that this is the right thing for you to do, it's worthwhile an investment. But make sure that when you are there in any program and you join any such initiative, you are giving your 200%. So those few months of trading will form the foundation for next 15-20 years of your career. So you have to take it very, very seriously at that point of time.
Great. I think this is what I wanted to kind of converse about. I mean, the COVID thing. What is data science? What are the skills you require? What are any constraints on background? How do you start the journey? So I think uh, if you have some last words, Mukesh and RP. I mean, any last pieces of advice before we go, or maybe we can wait for the question answer session and wait for that, and then maybe we can close with that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think we can open up for the Q&A from the audience. Yeah.
Let's see if what people are asking us, and maybe that itself will open up the conversation even more. So, Pradeep, are you there?
Yes, so Professor Charanpreet Singh. There are in fact a bunch of questions which have already queued up.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me read them out, and any speaker will be welcome to pick it up. There's this question from Yash, and his question is: as AI and ML are being used in big companies or large enterprises worldwide, would it be feasible ever for smaller companies or MSMEs in India to take a leap into these technologies in terms of adoption of these technologies?
Yeah.
So I can probably take that question. Yeah. So I had the experience of setting up one of the fintech companies, right? And I was the employee number one in that company. Just after the founder who came out with this idea कि boss यहाँ पे कुछ चालू करना है इंडिया में with respect to the fintech and the lending and all of that, right? So you cannot get any smaller than one person, right? And the first person he hired was the head of data science. That was me, right? To to set up the entire practice of setting up the credit engine, how do we use the data from different places, and how do we really score the customer. And the funny thing was he has zero data. So मैं बोला बॉस डेटा कहाँ पे? बोलता डेटा कुछ नहीं है. And we have hired you as a data scientist, and you have to go and figure it out, right? So it was quite an experience for me that I had to do the BD work, operation work, all the networking, figuring out. So we ended up like leveraging the data from some of the publicly available sources like lendingclub.com. This is a P2P lender in the US, so their data, and then we talk to a lot of bureaus and all of that. So this is one example where even if you are a very, very small size company, you still need a data science person, right? You still need people who can go and work with the data. And even the family houses, which have typically been driven by the intuitive thinking or the head of the business knowing everything about the customer, are now slowly realizing the value of the data-driven decision making. So the short answer is everybody needs it, regardless of the size.
Correct. Great. Yeah.
I'll just add one example to it. 4 years back, Cars 24, which has been valued more than $1 billion, right? I was reading an article valuation. I think this is one of the company which got added to the billion plus valuation club. Right? 4 years back, it used to be a very tiny company, right? And by the way, they reached out to me that would you be interested in leading our data science team? Right? And that point of time, I just started my career at Prisite under Pritham and Jeet. CP, you might know them.
Yeah, of course.
And you don't want to keep jumping around. So I had actually referred one of my junior from NIT Trichy. And that point of time, Cars 24 used to be really, really like, I think I would be surprised if there were more than 4 to 5 people, right? I don't have exact numbers, but as small as that. And they actually started working with us as a customer at that point of time, right?
Right.
So, to be honest with you guys, whether it is small or whether it is big, everybody is thinking about how do we leverage data science to help us grow, mitigate any risks, or improve our margins, right? In fact, I see the smaller organizations are a lot more agile in adapting it because they don't have a history. They don't have they don't have to explain it to thousand other people, etc. In fact, it might be a little bit more challenging in terms of if I see amount of money you spend on data as AI divided by your revenue for Pepsi, and my amount of money you spend divided by revenue for a very, very small organization, I will not be surprised that small organizations, that ratio will be much higher. Right? For a company like PepsiCo, we are very traditional companies. Data science is not our core competition. We are good at branding. So I think, but having said that, our ability to spend is huge. Right? So I don't think you should worry too much about small or large organization. I think they are all excited about it, right?
Yes.
And in every organization, you will learn something and go for it.
Yes, Pradeep, we can go to the next one.
Yeah, sure. So there's another question from Amit. I think he's trying to understand, the difference between roles which are advertised as business analysts and data analysts / data scientists. How different are they, or how similar are they?
Yeah.
RP, you want to take or shall I go ahead?
No, you can go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay, perfect. I think I'll explain it from a perspective of how we do at PepsiCo, and it might change. By the way, see, because this industry is so new, I think everybody is using the names according to their, what makes sense for them. At least in PepsiCo, business analysts are the folks who are working on a daily basis with the business, right? These guys' priority is to understand, work with the business guys. Like for example, in marketing team, they will be the business analyst will try to understand with the marketing thing what are the 5 questions that you are interested in, right? And then try to get the data on an ad hoc basis and help those questions answered, right? They might not be the best people in Python, data science, etc., but they are people who are management consultants kind of profile, who are really street smart, right? Today you are solving one problem, tomorrow you will be solving a different problem. But over the period of time, one thing they will really, really be good at is understanding PepsiCo's business. That's why they are business analysts, right? So really combining the knowledge of business and our ability to analysis and giving that. Second is data scientists are a little bit of people who pay less attention to the knowledge of business, but that become a horizontal in some scheme. They really need to be good at understanding the cloud infrastructure like in AWS. They really need to be good at data science, right? Now it depends on whether you are doing the modeling piece or you are in part of the data engineering team. Data engineering team needs to be really good at data lakes, data warehouse creation, etc. If the data, how do you merge the data? How do you create different tables on cloud? Almost everything happens on cloud these days. So I'm going to focus on that. Whereas the modeling people are supposed to be good at really Python, R, SAS, some of these tools and data science, which algorithm needs to be used. For example, when we are doing solving any problem, what algorithm makes sense for segmentation? Right? Which algorithm might be more appropriate for regression modeling? That's a second scheme. Third could be, let's say, within the same scheme of things. I even see the data scientists who are doing the business intelligence work, right? People who are really good at Tableau and all that. So these guys really need to be good at those tools, right? But then this team might be actually working with business analysts, right? Because business analysts will be able to deliver ad hoc project, but wherever there is a bigger program, these guys will deliver. And at least in PepsiCo, the data scientist, most of the places is part of the so-called as vertical as CDO, Chief Data Officer, right? For example, companies have started creating a separate vertical itself these days, and that vertical is support or horizontal is supposed to support everybody. Now, these guys are supposed to be thinking about being able to get internal data, outside data at one place and do all that analysis. Now, business analysts are aligned with all the businesses. And data analysts and business analysts, at least in PepsiCo, are almost used, whatever makes sense to you. Usually data analyst is one level junior than business analyst in PepsiCo, and beside why as well.
Okay. Okay, I'll move on to the next question. Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this next question is from Jai Kishan Kumar Swami. And he says he has over 20 years as in the area of mechanical maintenance for a large brick and mortar conglomerate, and he's now passionate about data science. And his question is there an age barrier for corporates to recruit data scientists?
Are people to take that?
Sure. Yeah. So the question is that I have 20 plus years of experience in a particular industry. Jay mentioned like in the mechanical, but I mean for that matter any other industry, right? So I will say probably in situations like this, it is you can still be successful as a data scientist, but probably you cannot think about going to a very, very different industry to begin with right away, right? So it might very well be the case that there are opportunities within the same company or not within the same company, another company which requires that as a domain expertise, plus the data science skills coupled with that, right? So it's always easy to make a career transition to a related field. So you should not let go of that 20 plus years of experience. Look for the roles which require that knowledge and the data science knowledge, right? So that will actually get you started with respect to your journey. Once you do that for some amount of time, then again it becomes a horizontal for you. Then you can move across any different industry. But practically speaking, it will be very difficult that if you have 20 plus years of experience and then you say, okay, now suddenly I want to come and work in a bank. They may not necessarily leverage your prior experience, right? So it's always easier that you leverage what your core competency has been so far, is what my thoughts are. But happy to hear from CP and Mukesh.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and we've had some of these some people like that. So what happens is that their domain knowledge actually gets them a lot of leverage, and then they because even going back to what Mukesh was saying, that smaller, and even both of you were talking about the smaller companies, right? So we've had a lot of these companies talk to us during the COVID time, asking us to do some consultancy and show them the roadmap for adopting AI and getting more kind of smart with data. So I think people realize now that unless they do that, there is no way forward. So this industry, the manufacturing industry, is adopting data, this data science, AI especially, in a big way. So I think domain knowledge of 20 years in maintenance, predictive maintenance, one of the largest. things that you do with data in manufacturing, right? So, and I think that's a huge positive as domain knowledge for somebody who wants to enter this field. So, I think I totally agree with you. I don't think moving fields is a great idea anyway. I think you could just become an expert there, real expert.
Sure, sir. Thank you. The next question is from Jeet Shah, and he's got an interesting question. He says there are a lot of, a huge number of people learning data science increasingly, at least over the past couple of years. Now, what skills would essentially, make him stand out from the rest of them? What would give him an edge over others?
Let me take that, CP sir. So let me try to this, and maybe you guys can add. Right? I think my understanding is what he's saying is there are a huge number of people trying to learn data science, offline, online, all that, right? What skills should I invest my time in to be able to differentiate versus other folks in the market? And great question. I'm sure if I were a student, I would have the similar questions in my mind, right? I think it depends on where you are in your career. So if you are an individual who has, let's say, at least 4 or 5 years plus experience, going back to what RP and CP suggested, make sure that you look to leverage the domain knowledge that you have. Stay in the same domain, right? Keep building on top of it. In fact, any case studies you do during your learning, try to do the case studies in that field itself. For example, when I did my AI and ML program with MIT, I did either in e-commerce or CPG, FMCG, because that's my domain, right? I built it over the last 13, 14 years. That's one. Second, from the skill perspective, some of the skills like cloud, I think, we don't get people in the market. And I'm sure that's a situation even RP must be facing. So market is still trying to do a lot of things offline. You are learning Python, you are learning Tableau, you are learning Power BI, you are learning SQL. But I think if you want to really differentiate yourself, invest some time in being able to do implementation online, right? So that data science just become the core of the solution, but we are able to deploy it online. I think I don't see a lot of people investing their time in cloud learning. Right? Even if your campuses don't teach, just take some courses, one course. See, you can always complement your course with something else. That is one. Second, I think invest your time a lot more on some of the skills like SQL. In the last 2 to 3 years, I'm noticing people are becoming too excited about data science, so they will know theoretical knowledge of which algorithms, etc. You ask them and they will jump into it because that's what they're paying attention to. I'm saying before you run the model, your ability to clean the data, your ability to transform the data, not a lot of people are investing time there. This is something well known for last 20 years, but trust me, in the last 3-4 years, I think as an industry, we have lost the track of that there are basic things that we need to be good at. And we are trying to become really good at deep learning, neural networks, right? Trust me, we use neural networks and deep learning only 5% of our time, right? But we spend 70% of our time on being able to do data cleaning. So be good at what we desire, and we are going to be doing 70% of the time, right? Because that's where we are going to be judging. Right? Being able to write extremely optimized code in SQL to be able to extract data is the starting point. If you actually differentiate in your knowledge of SQL, nothing beats it. Nothing beats it, right? On top of that, then you can actually learn Python, you can learn BI tools. So I think my suggestion, if I have to pick 2 tools, one will be extremely good at SQL, and second will be invest time in Azure, not Azure, AWS, Azure, GCP, any of those, basically cloud implementation.
RP, you want to say something on this?
I think it's pretty much covered. Sure.
All right.
Good, yeah.
Yeah. So I just say that what we have seen with recruiters, and I have now the database of our alumni starting with 2012 when the first batch graduated. I think people who have invested time in the business have done really well. So because we keep track, we're not a school of 5,000 people. So people who are close work very closely with the business and understand the business. So what happens is they first get accepted very much by the business, because this business is like an internal client. I'm talking about those guys who are in captive. So who are, let's say, working with a bank or working with a CPG or somebody. So they get one is they get accepted by those teams that this guy is not an outsider trying to tell us what to do. The other is that you get into the details of business, then you can actually come up with very good solutions. So I think never forget that you're solving business problems. That can really, I mean, companies would love you because that is what they've taken you for eventually. I mean, eventually you have to solve a business problem. So the faster you can get to that, and even in our course, sometimes we have a bit of a problem. When we talk about business problems, people think that they are losing time. They would rather have spent that time, learning a little more of tools. But I think that is something also in addition to cloud, which is so we've introduced something called DevOps as a course, 30-hour course where we actually do this transition of how do you actually take your solution to the cloud, and I think that is absolutely necessary. SQL I agree with as well. I would add business appreciation and passion for solving that problem also with whatever you know as another thing which can surely differentiate you. Not get lost only in the tech part. I mean, yes, Pradeep, we could.
Thank you, sir. There's another question. This one is from Divya. Now she's asking, now in the COVID era, uh, are the online data science professional certifications as valuable as the offline ones? Considering that even most of the offline programs are now being delivered through online module.
So let me just get this one part. So one is the online is of many types, right? So there is one online where it's canned programs where you have videos and you watch videos as and when you can. It's very good for professionals, working professionals, because you can, it's your time poor, and so it's your pace whenever you want to learn and all of that. Then there are online which are, let's say, you have live classes, right? Which is and then there is a full-time program which has transitioned to online, and it's going to get back by January. In December itself, we are starting our physical classes also. So I think it's more about, is it an entire structured program or is it just bits and pieces, as what Mukesh was saying in the online piece? If it's an entire structured program which is being delivered online and you are doing live classes, I think it is pretty much a good program to do. And if it is, if COVID is not there, then that program moves in class, even better. So that's what's going to happen now. I mean, we are all getting back to that. Yeah.
Okay.
What certification value? I think you guys are better equipped because you recruit.
Now, first of all, by the way, welcome to Divya. I'm so glad there is a lady in the group, right? Right. So and I think CP said it earlier. This is one field that really needs the women, right? Really, I mean it, because we are asked that question on a daily basis. And as soon as he said Divya is asking this question, so I'm so glad that there's a diversification in the group. And I think on top of that, CP, I think you said absolutely correct. Don't differentiate versus online, offline. Differentiate versus structured, unstructured. Because structured program will give you all those benefits that CP and I talk about earlier, right? That ecosystem, help in hiring or getting placed, that access to the alumni network, right? And shifting your mental thinking in the direction. All of that is very important.
RP, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I would say, ideal is to go live whenever possible, given that you have the bandwidth and the resources available. If your schedule does not permit, you can always go with more static versions of that, right? So, and frankly speaking, I think now this is not so much of a choice. Whether I should do the online versus offline, it's going to be dictated by what is happening around us, right? So, but in any case, I haven't found any productivity differences just because things are being done online. If that is the case, if you heard the news, a lot of companies are planning to go a hybrid model now because of the success of the online model that they found, right? So, I mean, there's no harm, even if you have to sign up for something online, but prefer those where you can actually have some live assistance, and as we discussed earlier, a possible path for you to make that transition and the help along the way.
Okay, okay. Thank you. There's another question, and this is from Hari Priya. And her question is, in the current scheme of things, is there a space for startups offering AI solutions to come in? And if so, is there any guidance that your speakers would like to give her in terms of which areas of the startup could potentially address a business problem that currently exists?
RP, you want to go?
If I understood the question correctly, the focus is more on which areas of startups the AI can play a bigger role in. Is that right?
Correct.
If I understood. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll say probably some of the usual suspects for the consumption of the data science output have been the finance industry, have been the pharmaceutical industry, have been the tech industry, which are at the forefront. But now is the time that, regardless of what you're doing, I mean, you may still be requiring the AI. So, for example, if you are in a simple business, I don't know, I mean, let's say, I mean, not simple, but I mean, even non-technical business.